Today we will be speaking about how you can become a more enlightened being. It is very difficult in your day to become enlightened because there are constant things coming at you, distracting you and pulling you off path. It is much more difficult than it used to be. Although many people will disagree with this, we believe that the trials that you face now are particularly challenging on a spiritual level as well. It is not as physically challenging, but your spirit feels that it is more trapped within today's world than it did before. Therefore, this is the most important time to speak of enlightenment. For it is important now to know that you are able and willing and going to become more enlightened. It is through this process that you will feel more at peace, but more than peace, it will allow you to feel more connected to yourself, to the people you love and do not love, to the people that you feel anger towards. You will feel connected to them and still angry. We mention anger because it is easy to believe that an enlightened being would feel no anger. And in some cases, this may be true, but in other cases, it is not true. And this is a very important point. We often feel that because our emotions are in turmoil, we cannot be enlightened, and this is untrue. You may feel turmoil and peace at the same time. This is what we would like to talk to you about today. How to allow yourself to be enlightened while still maintaining the full spectrum of emotion that an average human goes through. Speaking of emotions and the ability to separate yourself from the situation as a whole is much more complicated. Emotions are a beautiful thing because they are simply indicators of what is occurring. We often label some as good or bad, but they are not. They are all indicators of something. When you hold the situation away from yourself, what you are doing is saying, I recognize the emotions are still very powerful, but I am allowing myself to see the situation with more clarity. I am allowing it to move from being reactive to being understood. It is simply this shift that we are going for. I give you a visualization because I think that is the easiest for most of the beings here. But you may also imagine that the feeling of it is going into a small box where you can recognize and hold it. The important thing is that you allow the emotions back out afterwards. It is dangerous to compartmentalize to the point where you stop feeling them. But it is useful to be able to put them in a situation that allows you to feel as if you can see them from a more understanding point of view and a less reactive point of view. Emotions as a whole will feel tumultuous, and that is because they are a huge part of being in a human body. Emotion is part of your very biology, and that is because it is necessary to keep you alive. But as you look at your whole self, your soul self, your divine self, your greater self, you will recognize that emotions are not quite the same thing in all states, but instead a thread of truth that transcends all, but is expressed differently. How you communicate with yourself. This will also be very helpful to many of you, though some of you will have less trouble with this than others. When we talk with ourselves, we do not use the same tone that we use with other people we care about. We talk with ourselves as if we are somehow less than, a child in need of scolding at all times, someone we are holding to high standards that we are very disappointed when they do not meet them. And yet, we would not allow ourselves to talk to someone else this way. This is something I have spoken of before, but must be spoken of again. The tone in which you use when you communicate with yourself is of the greatest importance. If you notice that the tone you use with yourself is not understanding, forgiving, and compassionate, you will always feel in turmoil. I would like to say that again so you may hear it again. If the tone you use with yourself is not loving and compassionate, understanding and forgiving, you will always be in turmoil. You will never be able to have a good enough life, a happy enough existence, a great enough understanding to overcome your self-talk. Although loving others is extremely important, loving yourself is every bit as important. You may be able to go through the world causing goodness, spreading a loving sense of self without speaking nicely to yourself, but it will always feel as if there is something missing, something broken, something that does not flow with the way you treat others. You will feel as if you cannot ever find the deep love you are looking for. And that is because that love must start and end with yourself. This is a difficult concept. Your world does not promote self-love as much as it promotes the love of the other. But let me tell you, all love begins and ends with yourself. It is not selfish to love yourself. It is simply the way that you begin to form the ability to feel the greatest compassion and the greatest love for others. No matter how great your love feels towards others, if you do not love yourself, you are not accessing that full potential. So I would like you all to take a second and say to yourself, I see you. I see you are flawed and I see you are good. I see you are trying and I see some days you fail. And I love you every minute of every day, regardless. It is lovely to feel love from others, and sometimes it can be lovely to feel the love from ourselves, but sometimes it can feel emotional, difficult, or sad. If you are feeling that way, it is perfectly all right. It is important you stop and say it again anyway. I see you. I see your beauty and your flaws. I see your goodness and your failures. I see when you are spiteful and small, and I see when you are grand and generous. And I love all pieces of you, just as you are. Despite the fact I will continue to grow, I love you as you are now.
Everything you just kind of like talked about with the morning and night self-love statement that you had.
Yes.
You said it a couple different ways. Is there a particular way you can go and I'll write down right now that you like us?
I would like you to write down many ways. It is more important to use different wording so that you can begin to feel the truth in it by coming up with new ways to look at the same thing. If you say the exact statement again and again, it will begin to become sound instead of truly giving it meaning.
Fair enough. So of the two that you did, should we use like one in the morning, one at night?
Feel free to start that way and then begin to change them yourself. Look at what I said, understand it, see how it applies to your life and your challenges, and then change it. The changing will allow you to see the truth in it more clearly instead of repeating it for simply the words and sounds. If you use different words and different practices, you can also see nuance that cannot be seen through simply the American word of love and the definitions we apply to it. And I would like you to take a second and recognize that the fact you are here means you are trying to connect with a greater reality. This is the last way I would like to talk about today, to become more enlightened. The more you are able to connect with something that is greater than yourself, the more enlightened you become. There are many aspects of this greater reality. What they are is amazingly unimportant compared to your connection to them. I am a spirit, a disincarnate being, and connecting to me causes an awareness of the greater reality. So you are already becoming more enlightened by simply being here. Healing, a connection to your higher self, your soul self. That is also a sense of being more enlightened. Feeling into your fellow man and feeling their feelings and their suffering is a way to connect to the greater reality. Yes, it is still earthly, but it is greater because it is not limited to your experience. You may also do things like connecting to truth, wisdom, knowledge that is more innate than simply learned. You may feel this through information channeled through you. You may write it out, or you may sit with a concept and hold it in your heart until you find greater detail about it. The important thing with all of these is that when you connect, you do not just do the actions, but feel the reaction in yourself. That is where the enlightenment comes from. Not the motion, but the response. Sitting in trance does not make my human more enlightened. It is simply an action she is able to do. But when she allows what I am saying, even on a felt sense if she does not remember, to penetrate into her heart and make her a better person, a more enlightened person, she becomes more enlightened. When you listen back to this and you receive the information again, allow it to penetrate into your heart and mind. Sit with concepts. Ask yourself, why did this unsettle me? Or why did this make me feel wonderful? What about this is healing me? If you go and do a skill, read into someone's truth, or maybe speak to someone on the other side of the veil, you are simply connecting. But ask yourself, how is this making an impact on me, on the people around me? How am I using this? And am I allowing it to penetrate? Or am I allowing it to stay superficial? Most beings believe actions create change. And although this is true in many circumstances, they do not create enlightenment. It is allowing those actions, those thoughts and feelings to go deep into your heart and mind, to change you, to allow you to feel different in a moment-to-moment way, allow you to feel connected when you are doing simple things. If you are vacuuming, imagine vacuuming and feeling that you are the vacuum. You are the sound. You are part of this beautiful cacophony that is this moment. And that is an enlightened way to vacuum. So it is not always about what you do, but about how you perceive it and what you are perceiving.